around the world, and certainly over the last 10 years or so, there has really been this movement of using data for social good. And the thought process is that there's the advances in technology and analytics and visualization has happened primarily in the private sector, and that's great. But nonprofit and social organizations are doing amazing work. They also have a lot of data, but they don't have a lot of the skills or resources to use it. So this movement has taken place. Next slide is from data.org, which is a really interesting organization. Encourage you to look it up. But one of their recent posts has developed this data for good landscape from around the world, all the various organizations that have a part in this movement that is happening. And if you look really, really carefully, I know you can't see it, but Data for Good is in this. So it's a Where's Waldo problem for you. After the presentation, you can come back and try to find us. Next slide. So what we do is pretty simple, but we think is pretty important. So it's volunteers like you, data analysts, data scientists, those that have a passion for data. We combine your volunteer efforts with great organizations in the nonprofit social sector. And together, there's a variety of ways that we help out to really increase impacts of organizations through data. Next slide. So in Calgary, the Calgary chapter is part of a national organization, and we have chapters all the way from Vancouver to Halifax. And it's been an amazing journey so far, and continues to grow. So if you have any friends or colleagues in any of these cities, let them know. If you know somebody in a city that's not on the map, let me know, and we can reach out and start a new chapter. So in Calgary, we've been going since 2013. We have over 2,400 members. We're organized through meetup.com. So just go there, go to Calgary and do a search for Data for Good, and you'll find us. We work in 3 different ways. Our large sort of signature event is our datathons. So once or twice a year, we'll partner with a larger organization that has a lot of data. And when we can meet in person, hopefully we'll be doing this maybe in November of this year. We have these weekend events, a Friday night, all day Saturday, and Sunday morning. Spend a lot of time curating the data, as Paul is going to describe to you. It's really exciting. It's fantastic. And we'll have over 100 volunteers like you come together to draw insights from that data. Our medium-sized projects are our partner projects. So we find organizations or they find us. They come and talk to us about what their challenges are. And we spin up a team of 5 to 10 volunteers to work with them with a few weeks, a few months, whatever it takes to solve their issue. And we've just launched a series of micro projects, which are member-led. It's your ideas. Come to us with an idea. We help form a group. And these are small projects, 4 weeks or so, and get them done, draw some insights, and make a presentation. We have monthly meetups on the 4th Thursday of the month. And there's some of our contact information there. So just a brief glimpse of some of the organizations we've worked with in Calgary and across Canada with our datathons. And so last November, for example, we were partnering with the Calgary Homeless Foundation. For our partner projects, next slide, Paul. Our partner projects, these we usually have 2 or 3 of these in flight at any one time. Right now, we're working with the Alberta Law Foundation as well as the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation. And then we have our micro projects, and we're 3 in flight right now. We had a presentation just on Thursday from one of them, which was on pet adoption. So a really cool idea and some really interesting insights on that as well. There's lots of resources, a way for you to kind of pitch your project as well on our Data for Good meetup site. So finally then, invitation for you to join us. These are some pictures from Data for Good in action. It's it's a lot of fun, but it's a great way to give back to the community as well as network with your colleagues in the data community from across Calgary. So thanks a lot, and I'll turn it over to Paula.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to concentrate on the preparation that we do for datathons, which is our big event, and like Geoff said, a yearly event usually. Um, and I have a link here to Harvard Business Review article, and it mentions that your machine learning is only as good as the data that goes into it. Plus it also, from a Kaggle survey, data scientists say that they spend about 40 and up to 80% of their time just gathering and preparing data. So what we want to do to make these datathons successful and allow people to sort of walk in and start analyzing is to do a whole bunch of do that work, do that heavy lifting prior to that one weekend. And we usually do start working with partners the I don't know, as early as April, May, and of course our datathons are usually in November. So I'm going to talk about how we really approach working with a partner, and I'm taking this nested model idea from Tamara Munzner, who usually talks about this model when talking about how to focus on and figure out how to um, express your analytics and visualization. Although thinking about it, I thought, oh, there's some overlap here. So this domain is really all about setting up context. Um, every datathon has a primary partner that we work with, and that's going to set the theme for what we are going to try to learn out of outcomes from the datathon, plus also drive what we're going to data we're going to try and get. So and then of course and we want to gather that data. So with the partner, we figure out basic requirements, formulate objectives and questions for those objectives or themes that they want answers for, data driven. And with that information, we start getting the data together and figuring out to connect and prepare it. And then, we have that set up for when people come in, they also pick an objective that they want to work on and some focus. And then their what data will be a subset of what we prepared. And then their challenge is to, okay, pick a subset of data, figure out with the objectives why that partner wants to look at that data, and then start using a variety of programs and tools and visualization techniques to explain analysis. So that context is important. We want to deliver a quality and trusted product so people can quickly think about analysis only. Um, and this we provide that foundation in context according to what our partner wants. The objectives, because we usually have datathons and everybody's attending in a physical location over a weekend, we sort of have themes per table. And you saw in that picture that Geoff had that people were actually in these circular tables. Most of them are basic analytics, and you bring your own tool. And so we see typically self-serve BI in a very variety of programming languages there. Some examples here would be Power BI and Tableau for the self-serve BI or self-serve analytic platforms. And then we see a lot of R and Python and Jupyter notebooks coming up as well. And then we always try to have some specialized groups, always to have a text analytics group for natural language processing, programming available, a geospatial group, GIS, so they could be using ArcMap and QGIS. And we have had network analysis done where people come in and just concentrate using Neo4j. So, when we think about getting the data together so people can walk into the datathon and start working, we also need to think about not only does it belong and will answer these objectives, well, we also have to satisfy all these different platforms, right? People need to ingest this data in many different ways. And at many different levels, we accommodate from beginner to quite advanced analytics people. And this is kind of just a quick look at what we would get. This is an example from the 2018 Calgary Arts Development um, Datathon. You can see here that we have a list of objectives. So our tables would be arranged with those focuses. People, when the night before, they well, earlier we have a package that gets delivered to them, but they have time to figure out where they would want to spend their time for the weekend. And you can see here that there's also the special ones at the end. And to support their theme of and their vision, which in this case was Calgary was a place that empowers every resident to live a creative life, fueling a vital, prosperous and connected city. They had quite an extensive list of open data they really wanted to bring in um, to help provide answers to those questions contained in the objectives. So, it's a big list, and we want to make sure that people can do that sort of work and have that analyze a broad impact. I'm quickly looking. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was just looking at the comments and I thought, oh my God, have I been on mute the whole time? But no, I'm good. Okay, sorry. um, and to do that, we've really been evolving with time. So always and for every datathon, we all clearly get data directly from the partner. So that is their own data. And we've always allowed our participants to bring in any open data that might help their analysis. So that's been the continuum and will be um, since we started and as we go forward. Our main technology that we used was Sabira, a secured file share. They're also a sponsor, so you might want to seek them out here if you want to know more about them. And of course, Google Sheets and references, and you would go and get your own open data. Um, and here you can see the different partners we've come across. So after the Calgary Women's Shelter, and for the Calgary Foundation Datathon in 2017, we really scope sort of broadened a bit and wanted to make things easier. Really started to curate that open data so it was located better, more central, so that you could just go in and start working. We also started to um, provide a data profile because I think we had several data sets, probably over 80 attributes. Okay, that's a lot to learn in a quick time. So this data profile was sort of like a way that you could have a quick read, scan some key facts about those attributes rather than having to spend all that time trying to figure that out yourself, especially when it's data that people aren't used to. You're not working in this environment. The partners are quite different. It's something new every year. Um, then we've expanded that on that even further by actually adding some data architecture, providing a data model, which is key to understanding as well. It really helps people walk in and understand the relationships between various data sets and definitions. It's pretty thorough. And for that, we started building upon the Cybera secured file share and started placing data.world curated projects on. So this is a um, data.world is a platform, and we are a member on that platform, and we can actually curate these projects together. And the good news about that, for from my perspective anyway, is we can we put a lot of the spatial data there, or so geography related data, with the associated statistics data from StatsCan or from the municipality. And that data stays relatively static, I mean, until every census, but we'll have it, curated there with the supported documentation that we can just keep on relying on year after year. So you don't have to redo, and anybody can look at it at any time, really, which is terrific. A big win for us lately was with the latest Calgary Homeless Foundation, which happened to be all virtual, but uh, you know, still took the amount of preparation, etc. We actually added an Oracle database, which is a huge win from a capability and a capacity point of view. We're able to do more, to have that large data and be able to use a relational database. Even for preparation, we can check data quality easier. We can actually satisfy the people who come to our datathons asking for SQL, because prior to this, we'd have people who wanted to use SQL, knew databases quite well, and started making their own within that weekend. It's not the time to do that, right? So we do want to provide that as a product, and by having it, we can easily distribute in other forms. So it's been great actually to have that. So, a little bit more about that data gathering, processing, and architecture. One of our big things we have to think about is, how do we connect that partner data, which is specific to that organization, to that huge list on the side of all public and open data? And we want that to be figured out, and you know not have puzzle pieces apart, but sort of plugged together. So again, you don't have to do that and figure that out within that weekend of the datathon. For data architecture, we extract the data, obviously, model relationships, and I work with Corrine Jansonius mostly for the past couple of datathons. It's been us kind of at that core, and is she incredible, right? When you have a data architect, they make things clear. We provide definitions and pretty clear connections and tips on data and data content. So it really is that map that you can study, um, and get to know something really well before attending the datathon. We also work with the data and improve it, which is making it more of a higher data quality. Because we're relating data together and trying to find that connection, we make sure things are in a consistent format and meet definitions. Um, we also check again what makes a record unique, and making sure that we define and make, people will get their correct counts. Um, That can also mean that, of course, we have to have, you can have the same organization with different names or different presentations. So we make sure that we conform, which I mentioned down here. Um, we also consider to highlight nulls so they don't, they're not mistaken for something else. You couldn't, less chance, better to see them than to accidentally have a mistake in your totals or analytics, right? So we point them out. We make sure dates are consistent because we end up with many data sets, even in a single Excel spreadsheet source with many different date formats, and that can be problematic, of course. And of course, consistency um, across the board. This involves deduplication as well. We need to rationalize data and conform, as I mentioned before, the same organization name for the same organization. That's going to help us a lot. And we often have to anonymize data. We either consult to the organization and they do it themselves, or we take on that task as well. And that relationship between data sets is so important. So we do have the partner data in a secure area, and we will anonymize to how we need to. Um, We now create a data profile of all attributes. So you can have that, not only have that blueprint data architecture of how data relates, but for each attribute, have that distribution or profile so you can actually um, learn if it's a slowly changing distribution or if it's more exponential, which will drive certain analyses. We also tailor that to the data formats of it's either dates or a categorical or numeric. So, tools, languages we use ER Studio for the architecture. I've used R, Power BI, Power Query, SQL. Prior to Oracle, we would use SQL Lite, but now with Oracle SQL Developer, and of course, could use Excel FME and spatial tools like QGIS, and of course, Python, MapShaper, and Google APIs. It's all in there. Whatever we need to use, we use. So it's quite a variety. This is going to be just quick. I think there is just a really you can I don't know. When I look at this, I go, yeah, complicated. Yeah, doing that data is really supposed to impress you guys. There's a lot of work here. So we do try to automate as much as we can, and this is just some sort of cartoon about these data pipelines that we did use for the Calgary Arts Development one, and it really did require us to break information apart. This was information that belong to the organization, and these two were blending into from an open source, both for Calgary and Edmonton. And, split it apart, make sure everything's named the same, anonymize, and then merge it back again. Maybe that looks ineffective, but we did have to actually do that. And I did this at this point in time using our language in Depplier. um, and we did provide a data model and use a data model because this is actually in Power Query or Power BI. And through that data modeling, we don't end up with a perfect analytical model, but at least we do have those established relationships and some sense of some main lists and a tie into geography so that we then can easily bring in that statistical data from StatsCan and municipalities. So what we try to do is deliver this little package here, um, but a little package with a lot of content. And what's in that for when you show up at a datathon or even the week before, because we have a preview, is a logical model, data architecture laid out, how things relate with definitions. Absolutely incredible product that Kareen produces currently. We create a data profile so that you get, you know, a sense of what are the key, how do that shape of each of those attributes look like. Um, we on data.world have data you can access to either uh, put your reflect whatever aggregations you have with some geography, different types of geography, um, allow you to help that. Some of the yeah, some I'm going to go back to the tools because Carrie just asked for that, and this is probably the best one for the list here. Um,
So,
and then
so
maybe we could
Paul,
provide more.
we only have about three more
Yeah,
minutes or so. So if
yeah,
you can just go through the last few
okay.
slides.
And so we also provide a pamphlet of information um, during the datathon. We do Slack channels so we can answer things right away, and we have that secure data access through Oracle now that we intend to use more, and Nextcloud, which is Cyber, which was always there. Um, we data profiling. We just try to make the process better. So on the left was R, and on the right we're using BI tools that are more transparent, and we can probably give them to more people. We hand you a PDF anyways, so print it out. What tools do people come in for analysis? Well, they bring their own. And over the last 4 years, this is sort of the ranking we get. So lots of variety, which is excellent because we have different things we can do. And then a lot of popular uh, are Python as programming languages, and Tableau and Power BI as tools. So this list is not comprehensive. It came from 4 years of reports that we make. And at the end of the datathon, or the second day, like it's one night and 2 days. The second day, people present, and you can see that insight comes in many forms. There's evidence of statistical exploration, so discovery and exploration of the data, more detailed analysis and presentation, right? Get the complicated visuals, evidence of trends and comparisons with, this is the housing, unemployment rate, price of oil. You there's the luxury of trying to compare those things that the organization itself wouldn't necessarily do in a daily basis, right? Geography, uh, using those chloroplasts to represent area and point data. And then we have the specialized outcomes as well, which can include word clouds from text analytics, network from Neo4j, uh, R, and Python modeling and projection, and even down to artists who, for the Calgary Economic Arts Development, um, one person it had to everything to do with hand movements of everybody at the datathon, and the other one actually putting the data into music, which was pretty interesting. This is just a quick slide to show that, as a product, after the datathon, uh, each organization, except for maybe the last datathon, just because it was the way we had it with online, gets a report with all the highlights, which turns out, in retrospect, I think is great. Uh, what we're also seeing as a trend going forward is people using Jupyter notebooks.